Hi guys, we're there again, time for another book review. This one's taken a little bit longer than I thought to get out. I do apologise for the slight delay, but this time we're looking at Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. Now you'll remember many moons ago, back in the new year, I reviewed Red Dragon for you guys, which is the first book in this series. This is Silence of the Lambs. This is the book that everybody knows. Every cinema goer or book fan knows that Silence of the Lambs, and it is purely because the film was made into a complete blockbuster film many moons ago in 1990 or 1991, something like that. In the early 90s, it made a massive film starring Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, and he just embodied the role of Hannibal Lecter, and he brought it to life. And whenever somebody thinks Hannibal Lecter, whenever somebody hears the words Hannibal Lecter, they think of Anthony Hopkins, and he really was iconic in that film. This book is different from the first book in the series, because there's a different dynamic. Because Clarice Starling, who is the protagonist, she's a female, and that is the focus of the book. And that is the difference. The main big difference between Will Graham and Clarice Starling is she is a female, and her gender influences absolutely everything that happens to her. Jack Crawford goes as far as to say that he's chosen her to go and interview Hannibal Lecter because she is a female, and he might be more susceptible to open up to her rather than a man. She's hunting down Buffalo Bill, the serial killer, and she wants Hannibal Lecter's help. And this is a lot different dynamically than Red Dragon. And like I said, it's because of Clarice Starling's gender. She's a female. All the males, with the exception, I think, of Jack Crawford, in the book, flirt with Clarice Starling. Hannibal Lecter himself, the director of the asylum where Hannibal Lecter is staying, flirts with her. Maybe Barney doesn't as well. Maybe Barney and Jack Crawford are the only two males that don't flirt with her. The researchers at a museum where she studies moths flirts with her. All the males just seem to hit on her. And that's a big theme of the book, is how her gender influences the events around her. Now, I just touched upon moths. I'm going to touch upon my minor grievance here with Thomas Harris. Thomas Harris is obviously a very dedicated, very committed writer. He researches his subjects beforehand, before he writes about them. And he obviously spends a lot of time learning about things. And I commend that. That's great for an author. I do not want to spend page after page after page after page reading about moths. I know it's central to the character of Buffalo Bill. I know it's important. I just don't want. It's not fun. It's not interesting. If I wanted to read a book about moths, I would buy a book about moths. As I say, I understand it's central to the character of Buffalo Bill and how he wants to evolve. That's fine, but you didn't spend page after page after page after page of Red Dragon analysing the painting of the Red Dragon. You mentioned it and it was made a thing, but the plot of the book took priority. That was the worst part of this book for me, was that I had to read page after page after page on how a moth evolves. It drove me mad. But that aside, the rest of the book itself was phenomenal, probably on par with Red Dragon. Absolutely brilliant. Loads of themes, particularly duality is a theme here, with the differences between Hannibal and Buffalo Bill. Buffalo Bill is white trash. He's not very cultured, not very civilized. He's not sure of himself. Again, I'm trying to talk without spoiling too much here. I dare say most of you have seen the film or read the book, so you probably know what happens, but he's not very sure of himself, not very confident in who he is. He's white trash, he's poor, he's not cultured, doesn't listen to music, doesn't eat fine dishes. Hannibal Lecter is cultured, sophisticated, he's sure of himself, he knows his personality and who he is. He listens to classical music, he eats exquisite dining. Very different people, and I think the idea that Thomas Harris is trying to drive home with this one is that anybody can be a psychopath. Any different variation of people that you meet in the street or in your work, in your wherever, can be a psychopath. And in fact, psychopathy and mental disorder and sociopathy are touched upon a lot in this book. This book is very much a psychological horror. Even to the extent where even people like Jack Crawford, Clarice Starling herself, it comes close to touching on them being psychopaths and sociopaths, in that they will stop at nothing. In fact, the biggest sociopath in the book is probably the director of the asylum. He is Chilton. He is very, very sociopathic. He doesn't care. He will ruin anybody. He will trample over anybody to get what he wants. He goes as far as to tell Hannibal Lecter at one point that Clarice Starling is playing him, and they essentially lose all progress with Hannibal Lecter just for Jack Chilton's ego. So it's all very sociopathy, psychopathy, serial killers. Anybody can be a killer. Manipulation is another great theme. Everybody, and I mean every character, with the exception of maybe Barney, manipulates somebody in this book. Absolutely everybody, or at least tries to manipulate people in his book. Jack Crawford manipulates Clarice Starling by getting her to go and talk to Hannibal Lecter. Clarice Starling manipulates Hannibal Lecter with appeals to his vanity and her sexuality. Bloody Chilton manipulates Hannibal Lecter by telling him that Clarice Starling is playing him and appealing to his ego again, and getting him to sort of crash all the progress that they've made. Everybody is manipulating someone somewhere in this book. It's very fascinating to read, and it's all that also touches upon the motives for manipulation. Hannibal Lecter manipulates Clarice Starling and other people because he just wants to. He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's a game. It's enjoyment for him. Jack Crawford manipulates Clarice Starling in order to get a lead on a Buffalo Bill case. Clarice Starling manipulates Hannibal Lecter for the same reason. Clarice Starling also manipulates the two men who work in the museum who flirt with her to get leads and get ways for the same reason, to get where she's going. So Clarice Starling and Jack Crawford have got manipulation, but they're using it for a greater cause. They're using it to catch a serial killer. Hannibal Lecter is just doing it just because he can. Chilton is manipulating people because it feeds his own needs, his own ego. Very selfish man, very selfish reasons for motivation and manipulation. So motivation of characters, manipulation of those characters onto certain people, the psychology of those characters, whether they're sociopaths, psychopaths, or somewhere in between. It's a very, very interesting book to read. Very, very interesting to read and to analyse. So go ahead and pick that up. That was Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. I wouldn't say it's better than Red Dragon. It's arguably on par, but it loses points because of its dreary talk about moths. That for me means Red Dragon is slightly above Silence of the Lambs. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.